Today is the last Sunday of Lent. The journey is almost over. And today we read about Jesus' biggest sign to date. He brings Lazarus back from the dead. Now, so far in the Gospel of John, Jesus has done many signs. He's healed many people. He made disciples out of many other people. And in John, these acts are not called miracles, they're called signs, because they point to something that reveals the nature of God. But, excuse me, this one is the last straw for the Pharisees. Other healers have come and gone before, but nobody's brought someone back from the dead. Only God can do that, so Jesus must be the real thing. Therefore, he is very dangerous to the status quo. This sign is the sign that seals Jesus' fate. But let's not rush ahead yet. In today's story, Mary and Martha, our two favorite bickering sisters, are back. But it's not good news. Lazarus, who we've not heard of before, is dying. And they want Jesus to come, obviously, to help him. But by the time Jesus gets there, he took his sweet time. Lazarus has already been dead 4 days. So when Jesus finally arrives, Martha runs to greet him and says the thing that all of us at one point or another have said to God: "Where were you? Why didn't you come and help me?" Well, that's one of those unanswerable questions. But today, Jesus says to Martha, "Your brother will rise again." And she replies, "I know that he will rise again on the resurrection on the last day." It's like she's getting a gold star. But he says his famous quote, "I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. Everyone who lives and believes in me will never die." So here Martha gets to have the misunderstanding. Peter gets a break. She gets to be the foil for Jesus. And she says, "Yeah, I know my brother's going to come back on the last day," meaning the end of times, the afterlife, whatever you want to say. But Jesus says, no. Now, Lazarus is going to come back now, today. Because being resurrected is not a future thing, it's a now thing. It is a present tense statement. So how does she respond to this? Probably in a little disbelief. But how we respond to God in our lives is crucial to our faith and our growth. And this is the case in a lot of healing stories, the reaction. Bringing the dead back is something that only God can do. And there are times, when we have control over things, and there's times when we don't. There are times in our lives when the only thing we can truly count on is the power of God. And sometimes we come to that point where we just don't have any more energy in us, no more spark, no chance of getting back what we lost, or so we think. But there is only resurrection in the power of God. John Wesley said, and I'm going to paraphrase it because if you've ever read John Wesley, you know he likes to talk. He said that it is as much a miracle that God can resurrect dead faith to life as that God raised Jesus from the dead. Because when faith and hope are dead, there is only the presence and power of God left. So this resurrecting power is with us now. Jesus says, "I am the resurrection," not "I will be the resurrection," or "someday, if you're a really good little boy or girl, I'll resurrect you." Jesus is now. You've seen those products that say WWJD, right? T-shirts, bracelets, what would Jesus do? But actually, that is a faulty question. That's bad theology. It's not what would Jesus do, It is what is Jesus doing. It's not as snappy, though. What is Jesus doing today in our lives? Here, he brings Lazarus out of the tomb. And then he commands the crowd to go unbind him and let him go. So Jesus does the miracle, bringing him back, but it's not over yet. That's just step one. He tells the crowd to unwrap him. Here, Jesus gives the community a task. They have to help complete the miracle. They must participate in the resurrection and not just stand by and watch, because faith means action. So, what are we doing with Jesus today? Jesus calls Lazarus out and calls us out every day to do God's work in the world now. And we know, because of the Reformation, that we are not redeemed by works alone, but by grace. That doesn't mean that you get to sit around and wait for the last day like Martha, right? No. This sign is important, not just because he brought the dead back to life. It's because he got two responses from the crowd. One response was that people believed and joined Jesus in a new mission, one that was different from anything they ever knew before. They actively worked with Jesus to change the world. The second reaction was fear. The others feared change, so they started planning Jesus' execution to get rid of him. David Lowes explains it better, like this. Simply because God's activity will change us, it will comfort some and threaten others. Even the promise of new life comes only as good news to those who recognize that the old life is not enough, and only threatens or upsets those who don't want to change. God does the miracle, but God also gives us a part to play as it unfolds in our lives. But change is inevitable. What's that saying? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Resurrection is change, and we have to take an active part in it. Jesus is the resurrection, and resurrection is not a spectator sport. It can only be experienced. And God is inviting us to make a difference in the world now. We get our love and our support from each other and from God. And when we're down and out, God resurrects our souls. We need to continue God's work in the world, remembering Jesus' call to us. Lazarus died 2 times, actually. If you think about it, he probably died again. But we live now. So we have to make our lives count. We have to make a difference, no matter how small. So let's live out our resurrection life now. Don't just let it pass you by. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.